Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this early morning edition of Louie T Live as we have a big trade. I was sleeping in the wee hours of the morning. Phone goes off. I look up. Antonio Brown is finally an Oakland Raider. We knew this was coming. We saw the video of him lifting weights and his homeboy in the background saying, "You already got on gray and black." And so that pretty much told us the team that was really intensely trying to get the deal done. Look, this is going to go down as one of the most lopsided, one-sided beatdowns we've ever seen in terms of a trade in NFL history. The Steelers' hands were tied here. We're going to talk about the Steelers. I know a lot of Raiders fans want to talk about the implications of this trade for their team and what this means for them moving forward. It's a big trade for them. How about Michael Mayock fleecing the Steelers, fleecing a veteran GM like Kevin Colbert in his first deal? Look, I'm a Mike Mayock guy, so, you know, I'm going to try to make this seem like Mike went in and did work. All the work was done for Michael Mayock by Antonio Brown. We'll get to that in a little bit later on. But at the end of the day, and I know a lot of people are going to be mad, Redskins fans, Titans fans, all of these teams that bowed out of the proceedings because we all thought that the price was too steep. And you look at what the Oakland Raiders ended up giving up, and really what it amounts to is there was no other team for the Steelers to pit the Raiders against. So for all of you other fans out there, and I don't see any chat discussion right now, but I know what I'm going to see. Redskins fans are going to be upset, the ones that wanted Antonio Brown. I didn't want him. So I'm glad the Redskins bowed out, because if you were getting Antonio Brown on the deal that was already in place, if you didn't have to rip that up and give him new money, then you would be upset, because that was a really advantageous contract that you were going to be walking into, and you wouldn't have had to pay him any guaranteed money. But because Antonio Brown made it publicly known, I want guaranteed money, I want new money, I want a new deal, then if you're a team out there looking at Antonio Brown, all of the things that he brings to the table, yes, this guy is uber talented. Yes, he's a future Hall of Famer. Yes, 6 straight years of 100 catches or more. Yes, he had 15 receiving touchdowns last year. Yes, this man still has at least 3 excellent seasons left in him. Yes, all of that is true. But you're also getting a guy that is a head case. You're also getting a guy that can be a malcontent. You're also getting a guy that forced his way out of what we perceive to be one of the best organizations in all of football. And look, the skeletons come out of your closet. When shit like this happens, we really start to see what's really going on behind the curtain. And we pulled back. That steel curtain had been shut for a long time because it's so damn heavy. It's steel. But Antonio Brown pulled that curtain all the way back. Le'Veon Bell pulled that curtain all the way back. We're starting to see some skeletons in that Steelers closet. We're going to talk about some of that stuff today, in addition to Antonio Brown being an Oakland Raider. But wow, this was one-sided. This was a beatdown by the Raiders, and the Steelers really didn't have a say in this. This was like a Mike Tyson ass-whooping where you just got to go wave your arms. Give me the mouthpiece, man. This shit is over. Give me the mouthpiece. Come on. Give me the mouthpiece. Spit it out. It's over. They got their ass whooped in this trade. And it doesn't even matter if Antonio Brown flails out in Oakland. There's no winning this trade. There's no perceived way the Steelers can walk away from this saying that we did a good job, other than we rid ourselves of a locker room cancer. A guy that couldn't possibly come back into our locker room because of the things he said and done publicly, the way he's embarrassed us. He had to go. But there's no way you could win. And I talked about this on the podcast. Speaking of which, if you haven't checked out the Louie T Network podcast, what are you waiting on? Check out the Louie T Network podcast for more great content on the Louie T Network. It's available on Stitcher, Google, Music Play, iTunes, TuneIn, and of course the website louietnetwork.net. And I'm working on getting it onto Spotify as well. That being said, there are so many different angles, so many different things to talk about. And I'm in the process of moving. So if things look a little weird, I got a banner behind me that's old. Yes, all of these things are true, but I'm moving. So I'm going to be off the grid for a little while. You know, just as I was starting to come back on the grid, I'm out of it. So I'll reset shop up at a later date and time. I'll try to keep content coming out as best as possible. But in any event, let's start with the Steelers' angle of this. So, but before I even get into the specifics of what this means for the Steelers and why they got their ass whooped, the trade, as it stands, Raiders are receiving Antonio Brown and sending the Steelers a 3rd and 5th round pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. That's it. That's all the Pittsburgh Steelers are getting out of this deal is a 3rd and a 5th rounder in 2019. That, folks, that's a half-eaten hot ham and cheese sandwich. That's not hot. It's cold. All right? That's a juice box that has no juice in it. And it's not even open. It's air inside of the juice box. And you didn't even get a bag of chips. You didn't get a bag of chips. This is as bad as it gets. All right? This is as bad as it gets. And you had to give up $21.2 million of cap space in the process. Like, there's no way. So let's talk about the Steelers. I'm going to get to you Raiders fans because I know you guys are excited. I know you want to talk about Antonio Brown coming to Oakland. All right, so we're going to get to that in a second. I got to talk about the Steelers because this is fascinating to me. So we watched the L.Bell situation unfold. And that was a mess, but it was a quiet mess. L.Bell pretty much stayed to himself. He made the occasional jab here and there, but it was nothing obscene. It was nothing vulgar towards the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was just a man that wanted to be paid. The Steelers didn't want to pay him what he thought he was worth. He said, okay, well, I just won't play. It was a messy situation, but it was a quiet mess, all right? There's nothing worse than a loud mess, all right? The quiet mess, you can kind of sweep that under the rug and it eventually goes away. The loud mess, that's the problem. That's the elephant in the room that you have to find a way to take care of. And that's what this Antonio Brown situation turned out to be. To make matters worse, though, to make this thing even more really personal for the Steelers is that he attacked the organization. He attacked arguably the best quarterback in the franchise's history. He attacked a lot of the things that we thought were firm and rigid and together in Pittsburgh. We thought that this organization, and I think this is a bigger indictment on the Steelers than anything else. He attacked an organization that we looked at as a model organization in this league. We talk about the Packers all the time. They had their issues this year. They ended up having to fire Mike McCarthy. We talk about the Steelers, and we talk about the Patriots. Those are the three franchises that we pretty much look at universally and say, they've got their shit together. And just about every year, they're going to be in the postseason with a chance to win the Super Bowl. Now, I just named 3 of the best quarterbacks in the league. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. I just gave you 3 quarterbacks that, give me one second. I just gave you 3 teams with quarterbacks that could easily win MVP, Super Bowl in any given year, and we wouldn't bat an eye. So, I guess what I'm saying is it always helps when you've got a future Hall of Fame quarterback leading your team. But at the same time, these were well-run organizations. They draft well. They don't overspend in free agency. They do it the right way. At least we perceive that to be the case. They don't have a lot of drama going on within their building. If they do, they get rid of it quickly and quietly. Generally, those are the organizations you try to model yours after, especially the Patriots, because they win. But the Steelers are always there. They don't generally get over the hump. And the reason they don't get over the hump, similar to the New York Knicks of the 1990s or the Jazz, because of the Chicago Bulls, or in this case, the New England Patriots. But you looked at the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, you said, man, they got their shit together. And then these last 2 years with L.Bell and Antonio Brown have happened, and it has changed the way we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. I used to always say, man, Kevin Colbert doesn't speak a lot. And now I realize why. He's an idiot. He's an ignoramus. That's why he doesn't speak, because he doesn't know what to say out of his damn mouth. The whole, the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger is babysitting like 52 other kids. Like, that's an ignorant statement to make. The guy is a idiot. So, I won't say he's an idiot. That was an idiotic statement. And he having the experience that he has, should know better than that. And so that tells me the thought process that he has and the way that they look at that team and that organization. And we talked about this on the podcast about Antonio Brown, talking about how Ben Roethlisberger has an owner mentality and how this organization has been allowing Antonio Brown to get away with murder for so long, and now all of a sudden they're tired of his shenanigans. The Steelers organization isn't as together as we thought. They've got a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and now you look at them and you wondered all these times, why aren't they winning the Super Bowl? Why aren't they in the Super Bowl? Now you know why. They couldn't even keep their in-house nonsense from getting out to the media and the press. With the L.Bell situation, the A.B situation, you just gave away. This is unprecedented, and you may never see this again. You allowed a situation that I feel like could have been resolved if you just reached out and communicated better. And I understand that Antonio Brown went off on a tangent and he started throwing a temper tantrum like a 4-year-old, and it was hard to get to him. But you saw this coming. The signs were there. There were warning signs. There were red lights. There were stop signs that were there that you ran throughout the course of this year and probably past years, where you could have nipped this in the bud. You could have made this situation a lot more tenable. And instead, you just thought, oh, that's A.B. being A.B. He'll come around. And all of a sudden, this shit got from a level 1 problem, we'll figure it out, to a level 2, to a level 7 in about the span of 48 hours. The day after the Steelers won that game to wrap up the season versus the Cincinnati Bengals and missed the postseason, it literally went from a level 2 to a level 7, and it eventually got to a level 10. And it was amazing to watch them go from, hey, this is A.B. being A.B. He'll be fine. We'll figure this thing out, to, hey, he can't come back here. And he's like, I don't want to come back here. And it got to a point where you figured, but this is the thing, though. This is the one thing that struck me as odd, is because you always feel like the Steelers are going to figure it out because they're one of the model franchises. They're not going to allow something stupid to happen under their watch. So I said to myself, oh, they're going to just rid themselves of Antonio Brown, and they'll be fine. And then I learned what the cap ramifications was going to be, and I said, there's no way they're going to trade him. You just can't give away a guy that's still in the prime of his career, that's one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league, and you're giving him up for the amount of money you're going to have to eat under the cap. It just isn't smart business. And the Steelers have generally been smart businessmen. So I said, there's no way they're going to do this. And that, not only did they do it, but they backed themselves into the corner by not shutting their mouth and continuing to talk, trying to conjure up all of this activity. Yep, a lot of teams are interested. And these teams then coming out and saying, nope, we're not actually interested. You're lying. And all it did was make the negotiations easier for the Raiders. Instead of them keeping their mouth shut and just trying to see what they could get done, we got a lot of teams. It's starting to heat up. We want this done by Friday. You don't control nothing here. Shut up and try to get the best deal possible. Instead of saying, hey, we got multiple teams that are interested. Hey, we got a lot of teams that are interested. Leaking information. Redskins are interested. Titans are interested. Jets are interested. Cardinals are interested. Hey, Green Bay's interested. And everybody coming out and saying, man, keep my name out your damn mouth. I ain't interested in shit. Now all of a sudden you look up and all you got are the damn Raiders. And the Raiders are like, come on. Come on. You can't have Antonio Brown back in your locker room. Come on over here. Sit down. Come on. Have a seat. Sit down at the table. Let's talk turkey, man. So, what is it going to take to get Antonio Brown in a Oakland Raiders uniform? And the Steelers are like, a first-round pick? And the Raiders are like, nah. You don't have anybody else bidding for the services here. We're not giving you a first-round pick. Can we get a second-round pick? The Raiders are like, nah, a little bit lower. The Steelers are like, a third rounder? They're like, yeah, and just because we like you, we'll throw in a fifth too. And the Steelers are like, hey, Kevin, you can't call Tennessee. You can't call Washington. You can't call. He's like, hey, man, don't nobody else want to do this. He wants new money. What are we going to do? You're screwed. And so you give him up for a third and a fifth, and you eat $21.2 million in cap space this year. which is going to hamstring you. And you don't have Antonio Brown. I know Juju Smith-Schuster looks the part of a legit threat at the receiver position, and we really don't know what Washington is going to be. I liked him coming into the draft a little bit as the process wore on. I started to warm up to him a little bit more and more, and we'll see what he is in year 2. But none of those guys are AB. I can assure you of that. And so you're starting to look at the Steelers organization a little bit differently. Some of that respect that I had for them, it eroded over the last month or so. You know, the L.A.B situation, it is what it is. I could understand why they weren't all the way fully on board with paying this man a lucrative long-term contract. I could see why they didn't want to do it. He's worth the money, but there were some issues off the field and some things that you weren't quite sure of that made you have pause. Okay, I get that. This situation here, though, the way it was handled, the way it is unfolded, you guys wet the bed. And I think your punishment is a 3rd and a 5th rounder in addition to eating $21.2 million of cap space. And really the egg on your face and some of the respect you've lost around league circles. That being said, you look at the Raiders from the aspect of this trade and damn, they won. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Now, again, a lot of the work here was done by Antonio Brown. The Steelers were probably in a position to get a 1st-round pick from the Buffalo Bills. Who knows what the conversation would have been there. I think they would have gotten a 1st-rounder from the Bills. And Antonio Brown pretty much nixed that trade. And that's what happens when you allow a guy the kind of power that they essentially gave him in this situation. And over the years, they gave Antonio Brown the power to do what he did and really force their hand. They didn't have a choice, did the Steelers? You know, we can sit here and mock them all we want. But Antonio Brown put them in a corner that they couldn't get out of. They had a trade pretty much in place. And Antonio Brown said, Buffalo? I'm not going to Buffalo. It's too damn cold in Buffalo. Who's that quarterback? Josh Allen? I'm not going to Buffalo. You crazy? I'm not finishing my career in Buffalo. And the Bills were like, well, if he doesn't want to play here, why are we going to trade for a guy that's already disgruntled before we get him? All right, we're good. Never mind. And the Steelers are like, wait, Buffalo, don't hang up. Shit. He did it to you again on the way out. I mean, he screwed you so royally, and the Raiders were the beneficiaries of Antonio Brown's his bully tactics. He played bully ball, and I don't know, in the NFL, players generally don't get to play bully ball. They don't have the leverage. He forced his way out of Pittsburgh with 3 years left on his contract. And the Steelers had to eat 21. Like, let that sink in for a second. He did something that isn't done often in the NFL. He took the leverage and flipped it all the way in his favor. When do we ever see players have this type of leverage over an organization? And really, the Steelers allowed it. Because if this were the Patriots, they would have told Antonio Brown, shut the hell up and come to work. We don't care if you're unhappy. We don't care if you hate Tom Brady. We don't care if you hate Bill Belichick. We're not paying $21.2 million to get rid of you. You're going to come to work, or guess what? We're going to fine your ass every day you're not here because you're under contract for the next 3 seasons. So either you take it and like it and shut up and work, or you take this fine every day. It's up to you. It's your choice. If you want to retire from football, knock yourself out. But we're not taking a $21.2 million cap hit because you want out. That's not how this works. So the Raiders were the beneficiaries of Antonio Brown playing bully ball. And AB got his money, 3 years, $50 million. What is it, 40 of it guaranteed? 30 of it guaranteed? I think it's 40 of it guaranteed. Brand new money. And the deal can get, with escalators, I believe, up to $54 million. So he said he wanted a ton of money. He said he wanted somewhere in that $17 million range. He's right there, right around 16 and some change per. I mean, again, the man, he set a goal for himself, and he hit it. And you don't see players being able to do this very often, but Antonio Brown did it. Let's talk about the ramifications for the Raiders now. All you gave up was a 3rd and a 5th to get the best receiver in football. So that's a win. You got Derek Carr at quarterback. And I know there's been a lot of rumors out there swirling about the Raiders and them potentially drafting a quarterback. You put those to rest. I think Derek Carr won. Now, had the season continued the way that it started with Derek Carr struggling and John Gruden looking at him sideways like, bruh, you can't be my quarterback, then yeah, there would have been some real merit to discussions of them potentially drafting a quarterback in the first round. I don't think that's true. I think Derek Carr, over the final 6 weeks or so of the season where he was playing outstanding football, I think he won John Gruden over and said, look, I can play for you. I can be a Gruden grinder, if you will. And I think they have their quarterback in Carr. I think they got the receiver in Brown. I think you're going to bring Marshawn Lynch back because you're in Oakland another year, possibly 2. So you got your running back, quarterback, receiver, and now you just got to build this defense. Your defense is trash. But what you have now on offense is the ability to now, and I think you need to bring Jared Cook Jr. back too. That would be great. But in a draft where you've got 3 first-rounders, where there are a bunch of talented pass catchers at the tight end position, if you didn't want to pay Jared Cook a bunch of money and wanted to get a guy on a rookie deal, I totally get it. And there are too many guys in this draft that you're not going to get your hands on either one of the Iowa tight ends unless you spend the 4th overall pick, which I can't see you doing, on a tight end. But there'll be some real good quality at the back end of the first round and even into the second. So you'll be able to get something worth having at the tight end position to add to what you already have in A.B., Lynch, and in Derek Carr. So you got a ton of stuff on your football team right now that's going to give you an opportunity to be successful offensively. We know you've spent a ton of money on your offensive line, so that's pretty much intact. So really what you need to do is just start filling in all the blanks, all the little gaps on offense. You know, you could use a quality slot guy. You could use a legit number 2 wide receiver. And then I think you just fill in as you go. You know, you fill in all the little blanks as you go on this football team. But you look at the defensive side of the football, and you need a pass rusher. That Khalil Mack situation, it hurt. It stung. And I think if I'm the Raiders at 4, that's probably where I'm looking to spend my pick. I'm looking at Bosa. He's not going to be there. But, you know, I'm looking at Bosa. I'm looking at Josh Allen. And one of those 2 guys has got to be my pick. Bosa's going to be gone. So I think your de facto pick there is Josh Allen. I think Allen will be there. I really do, because I expect 2 quarterbacks to come off the board in the first 3 picks. You know, I think Murray's coming off the board, and I really think Haskins is going to come off the board, or a lot. We don't know who loves who, but I think the Jets are a hot spot for some team to trade up. And I think that 2 quarterbacks are coming off the board, and that's going to allow Josh Allen to fall into your lap. And I think you got to pull the trigger on Josh Allen to get you a pass rusher. And then you go from there. And you start filling in all the other blanks. Yeah, I love Quinnen Williams just as much as the next guy, and I think he's going to be a stud at the next level. But you already got a bunch of defensive tackles. None of them are Quinnen Williams, but you don't have an edge rusher. You don't have a pass rusher. You need one of those. So I feel like that's what you should do at 4, and then you fill in the rest of the blanks with all your draft picks. 2 in the later portion of the first. You'll get some really good value there. And you just keep going. If you're the Raiders, this is a win-win for you. You're not having to pay a ridiculous. You had a bunch of cap space. You were going to be fine, you know, paying A.B. You've already paid Derek Carr. And so now you look at this roster, and it's a bunch of young players on rookie deals. So you got a lot of affordable players. You're going to get more young players on a rookie deal, more affordable talent. I think now with Michael Mayock in place as your general manager, I think the sky is the limit for this organization. This has been a really good offseason. As for as bad as last year was, as an offseason into the regular season, trading Khalil Mack, trading Amari Cooper, and some of the destruction that went on with that organization from a roster management standpoint, and just the feel around Oakland moving to Vegas, then not moving to Vegas, and having to stay in Oakland a little bit longer, not having a home for a little while here in this offseason, and then finally agreeing to a deal to come back to Oakland for the next year or 2. It's been a mess and a little bit of a whirlwind, but things are starting to settle down, and the Raiders are starting to move in the right direction. I thought it all started with Michael Mayock being announced as the new general manager, and now you look at you having a deal in place to stay in Oakland for the next year or 2, and now getting Antonio Brown on what amounts to a lucrative deal for him, but for you, it's peanuts. And you're getting the best receiver in all of football. You're linking him up with a quarterback that needs a #1 target. There's a lot to like here with the Raiders. Still got a lot of work to do on defense. But if you're talking about a league where you got to be able to score to win, you just helped yourself immensely. And I know Oakland Raiders fans don't want to hear this, but if you're the Raiders going to Vegas, this is a great move for you. Now, this would have been a much better move if you were going to Vegas this year. That would have given the Raiders tremendous buzz. But you may not be going to Vegas until 2021. That will be the last year of this deal. By then, Antonio Brown may be a shell of himself. He may still be kicking ass, but he may be also starting to kick your asses. He might want out by then. Who's to say? Bottom line is, you got yourself a hell of a football player. You didn't have to give up anything in terms of compensation. You did have to turn around and pay him, but you didn't mind doing that. It's similar to Khalil Mack going to Chicago. Yeah, they gave up an assload for Khalil Mack, but it was worth it. And yeah, they had to turn around and pay him, but you were getting an all-pro player and one of the best at his positions. You're getting an all-pro player and one of the best at his positions. Yeah, sure, you got to pay him, but the compensation was nothing compared to what the Raiders got in return for Khalil Mack. And so, from that standpoint, celebrate! You just won in one of the most lopsided trades in NFL history. Pat yourself on the back. Hey, Michael Mayock, job well done. So, let's get to your comments and see what you guys have to say about this deal and the Oakland Raiders pretty much pulling the wool over the eyes of the Steelers, but really the Steelers had no choice. They didn't have a say in this matter, and so it is what it is. So let's see what you guys have to say. DMV fan says, Steelers got a chicken sandwich, stale fries back for AB, LOL. And that chicken sandwich, it was moldy, okay? It was a moldy chicken sandwich. The fries were severely undercooked and soggy. And, yeah, it was a pretty bad deal. But they didn't have a choice, as I said already. DMV fan says, I didn't want him either as a Skins fan. We are not in the business of giving up picks with all the holes we have or giving him new money. I agree wholeheartedly. It just didn't make sense for the Redskins, as it probably didn't make sense for some of the other teams. But, you know, if the Titans had gotten involved, and they could use an Antonio Brown, even though I think that Corey Davis is morphing into an elite wide receiver in this league. If last year is any indication of what he's becoming, then he looks the part of a number 7, I think he was, overall pick, number 5, whatever he was. He's starting to look the part. And, you know, Antonio Brown would have only enhanced his standing in this league, but could Marcus Mariota have satisfied both of them? I don't know. But the reason the Raiders were able to get the deal that they were able to get is because there were no more suitors. You know, everybody else was out. So had there just been one more team in there, it would have upped the price. So it had to work out the way that it did for the Raiders to be able to pull up the deal that they did. Lorenzo Simpson says, I didn't want Brown, but for a deal that cheap, I might have been tempted as a Redskins fan. I think a lot of Redskins fans are going to be upset when they see the deal that was had here. But keep in mind what I just said. Had the Redskins gotten involved, the price would have went up exponentially because there would have been all they needed, all the Steelers needed was one more team to be interested. Just one more team. And the problem was everybody else bowed out and the Raiders were the lone man standing. And they looked around, the dust settled, smoke cleared, and the Raiders looked around and said, you don't have anybody else. You got to come to me. Either you deal with me on my terms or you hold on to him. Good luck with that. You know, it would have been something similar to the Eagles had they franchise tagged Nicholas Foles, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars said, all right, I'll trade with you, but I'm only going to give you a 4th-round pick for him. What are the Eagles going to say? No, we're not going to give Nicholas Foles away for a 4th-round pick. You don't have a choice, or you're going to pay him the $25 million franchise tag you just slapped on him. Your choice. I'll wait. You decide. You backed yourself into a corner, and that's why the Eagles didn't slap the franchise tag on Nicholas Foles, because they didn't want to back themselves into a corner that they possibly couldn't get out of. And that's essentially what happened to the Steelers here. Pamil Production says, finally the cancer is out of the room. I think the Steelers should look to become a better team in free agent. see, in the draft rather than take shots back at AB. Here's the problem. You don't have a bunch of cap space because of that $21 million cap hit you just took by allowing this guy to move on. You got to remember that the Steelers, they weren't absolutely broke going into this thing, but that's a substantial amount of money. You're paying Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm pretty sure his cap number is pretty high because he's an established veteran in this league. So I'm pretty sure he's making top dollar. Now you're going to make some moves to try to alleviate some of the issues that come from this move. Like you just extended Marquise Pouncey out, and that's going to save you some money, I would assume, on the cap. It's going to free up a little bit of space, and you're going to find ways to make some moves here and there to give you a little bit of cap flexibility and some relief. But there's only so much aggression in the Steelers after this massive cap hit. But at this point, you're right, though. Something you said is true. There's no reason to try to go back and forth now. You lost the trade. You were backed into a corner. You already knew what you were staring at. It's over. Now you just move on. There's really nothing left to be had or said or gained by taking shots at Antonio Brown. Like, if we were to hear on Monday or Tuesday that all of the things that Antonio Brown has done over his time in Pittsburgh that they have been covering up, that's petty, and that's low rent and low budget on the part of the Steelers. And again, that would further home and further drive home the point that I made earlier, that they're not as classy an organization, and they're not the organization that we thought they were. If they're the Steelers that we know and we've come to know and love, then they'll just move on. They won't say anything else on this matter. They'll move on, and they'll try to better their football team. But if we start hearing leaks here and there about what Antonio Brown was doing and all of the things that they had to contend with and all the things they had to do to keep Antonio Brown on the field and happy, then we'll see that the Steelers are a much pettier organization than we all thought, and they're not what we thought they were as an organization. Chris Deaver says, Oakland lost in this. Should have kept Cooper if you were doing this. Look, man, what are you talking about? I know you're a Cowboys fan, and I know you love Amari Cooper. He wasn't going to be what he was. He wasn't happy in Oakland. He wasn't going to be what he was in Dallas. He's closer to home in Dallas. I think he loves playing for the Cowboys. It's a great match for them. They got a first-round pick for him. I didn't think he was worthy of a first-round pick. So the fact they got a first-round pick out of you was great for them. They got Antonio Brown. He's a much better receiver than Amari Cooper will ever be. They won here. There's nothing to talk about. Michelle says, I'm waiting for the day Gruden and Brown bump heads. It's going to happen eventually. If they couldn't work out with Coop, who's to say it will work out with Brown? Here's the thing. Amari Cooper was quiet. He wasn't going to ruffle feathers. You know, he was a guy that would go about his business. Again, whether Amari Cooper had 1 catch for 7 yards, 10 catches for 170 yards, or 3 catches for 37 yards, you weren't going to hear Amari Cooper's mouth. That's just not how Amari Cooper's wired. So, in saying that, they were going to be fine whether he was disgruntled or not. You weren't really going to know it. With Antonio Brown, let him have 1 catch for 7 yards. It's going to be a problem. Whether it's on the sidelines or on IG Live after the game, it's going to be a problem. They're going to butt heads eventually because Gruden has an A-type personality. Antonio Brown has an A-type personality. And some shit will be said. I can tell you this much. Gruden 2.0 is a lot less animated on the sidelines, at least in year 1. I don't know. Maybe he'll get comfortable back into the saddle in year 2 because, you know, last year he just seemed really mellow. They were taking ass whoopings and shit that we don't generally see from John Gruden when he's upset. He just kind of like laughed it off or just made a face and just kind of sit there and kind of wondered, did I make the right decision? Normally, he'd be fuming. Somebody's getting F-bombs in their ear. We'll see if that returns in year 2 or not. But I can tell you this much. Antonio Brown, with Derek Carr, and we've seen Derek Carr airmail a 3rd and 7 pass out of bounds because he didn't want to get hit. We've seen Derek Carr throw some interceptions into double coverage. We've seen him be an MVP-type quarterback, and we've seen him be a guy that was on the verge of getting traded. What Derek Carr shows up will be important as to the happiness of Antonio Brown. So we'll see what happens. Archangel says, Louie, thanks for the laugh, bro. You always know how to crack me up, fam, even when I'm at work. Hey, man, that's what I'm here for. I try, man. I try. The MP says, you were on point, Louie T, about the Steelers and how they were screwed up, how they screwed up the negotiations by faking their leverage. I just felt like they didn't have any leverage to fake. They didn't need to come out and say, hey, man, we got a bunch of teams interested. They should have just been quiet, going about their business behind the scenes, because teams are less likely to speak out that they're not interested if you don't make it known publicly that they're interested. The Redskins wouldn't have had to go out on the record and say, nah, we out of the AB thing. We're good. The Titans wouldn't have had to say that. The Jets wouldn't have had to say that. The Packers or the Cardinals wouldn't have had to say, nah, we out, man. Bills wouldn't have had to say anything. If you keep things quiet, then they don't have to go and refute a report that they're interested. Because guess what their reporters are going to do? They got to follow a lead. They got to follow a story. So if it comes out that Josina Anderson says, hey, I've talked to a couple of people inside the Jets building and they're in negotiations, or I talked to a couple of Steelers people off the record and they're in heavy negotiations with the Jets, or I hear that from Adam Schefter, or I hear that from Ian Rappaport. If I hear that, then as a beat reporter, I got to go to the Jets now and see what the hell is going on. And the Jets are like, nah, we inquired, we were somewhat interested, but we're out. Now they're out. So the Raiders are just sitting back. How many teams could possibly be in if everybody's telling you they're out? It just hurt them in the negotiation process. Instead of them trying to conjure up all this leverage, all they had to do was go about their business quietly, and the Raiders wouldn't have known what was going on. They wouldn't have known how many teams were active, and the Steelers could have been telling them, look, I got a first-round pick from a team in the middle of the first round sitting on the table right now. You either give me a package deal, or I'm going to go ahead and trade him to this other team. They wouldn't have known what was going on, but by the Steelers being so verbally active, they put their hands behind their back and they got tied. They got handcuffed, and the Raiders were able to have all the leverage. Ali Side says, Lou, I still remember 4 years ago when AB went off for 200 yards on us. Now we got him. It's a hell of a move, man. A hell of a move, and he's still in the prime of his career. Archangel says, damn, first Rice, then Moss, now Brown. Just wow, the Raiders do it again. That they did. Ali Side says, Lou, Raiders seem to have lots of money in cap, but we have 33 free agents on our team, but we need him. So Carr must play our expectations instead of being the new Alex Smith. Derek Carr, we've seen him have the ability to be an MVP caliber quarterback. You know, in 2015, before the injury, Derek Carr was on pace to be the MVP of the league. You know, him and Andy Dalton were playing at a different level. And so if he can get back to that kind of football, and we saw flashes of it last year. There were times where he was playing at a ridiculous level. It wasn't consistent, but we saw flashes. If you can get him back to that level, yeah, you got 33 free agents on your football team, but again, you're turning this roster over. You know, a lot of those free agents are guys that were here pre-Gruden. So you're going to turn this roster over. It's going to be more of guys that Mike Mayock believes in, that Gruden believes in. They're going to stockpile this team with young rookies or rookie deals. You're going to see massive, just like last year was mass exodus. You're going to see more of the same this year. You know, they're going to bring in guys that fit what they deem is an Oakland Raider moving forward. So you're going to see massive turnover. And but a great foundation to have is Antonio Brown and Derek Carr. That's a great foundation from which to start. So let's see. Ali Side says, I don't feel bad for the Steelers at all. The Raiders needed to make this move for Vegas, but I would rather have Mack. I agree. You know, I would rather you guys have Khalil Mack at this point. I think John Gruden would rather have Khalil Mack. I mean, he's still reeling from that trade. I mean, I heard him talk a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, man, I'm still, like, kind of baffled as to how the hell that shit went down. But he said, my brother didn't get anything for Kirk Cousins. At least we got something. So that tells you the mindset and where they were on that trade. But, yeah, that was rough. But, yeah, I think this deal was also vital for some juice going to Vegas. But, again, if this thing goes sideways in year one, and let's say Antonio Brown's not happy and Derek Carr's playing like trash and this thing goes to hell in a handbasket, all of the juice you gained by making this move now will go away. So that's why I said this is only a good move for Vegas if momentum is building towards Vegas. If Antonio Brown has 1,400 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns, and 102 catches, and he lights it up for the Raiders this year like he's been doing the past 6 years, then yes, the juice going to Vegas will continue to be there. But if he has barely 1,000 yards on 86 catches and he's not happy, and there was a lot of bickering between him and Gruden, and Derek Carr looks like a guy that the Raiders are trying to get out of the Derek Carr business, then you would have lost a lot of luster. You'd have to make some kind of other move to then put yourself back in a position where there's a bunch of juice going to Vegas. So you need this to work in order to take full advantage of the Vegas aspect of this deal. What up, Jump Speed? Chris Deaver says, I should have listed to you the whole picture you were painting. LOL, good stuff. And yes, I'm happy with Cooper. Yes, you guys got an excellent, I mean, I was so wrong about you guys trading for Cooper, that first round pick. And the fact that you made the playoffs and made that first rounder, because at the time, remember when you made the deal, that was looking like a top 15 pick. I mean, it was looking like the Raiders were going to come out like bandits. And I didn't think Cooper was worth a first round pick. And then you got him, and the guy went bananas, and he showed you why he was a first-round pick himself and why you were right in giving up a first-round pick. And then you made that pick like 24th overall. You guys did yourself a hell of a justice by getting Amari Cooper, and he's been excellent for you. And so you should feel good about what you did. They should feel good about what they did as well, because it wasn't working there. You know, I don't think he was happy, and they didn't know how to utilize him. So now they got Antonio Brown. We'll see how it works out for them now. But it's done. And the Steelers, their hands were tied, but they did a lot of this to themselves. So no one feels bad for them. Now we want to see what happens for the Raiders in this situation, because they got themselves one hell of a football player, and they got him for one hell of a discounted deal. The Black LB says, morning, Louie. I guess Mr. Blonde Beard knew how to stick it to the Steelers. To go to their biggest old school rival, cutting the F up. He says, I guess Gruden knows what he's doing. Maybe he does. Maybe we were all wrong. Maybe he does know what he's doing. I don't know. Again, I don't want to give the Raiders too much credit in this situation. All they had to do was sit back and watch the Steelers implode on this one. And Antonio Brown helped in the process. He not only planted the dynamite, but he lit the fuse and he watched it blow up. In cinematography, like motion. He's walking away in cinematic motion as the Steelers organization blows up in a building behind him, and he's looking cool. That's what he did. And he did that because they were going to trade him to the Bills, and they were probably going to get a first-round pick for him. And he says, hold up, I'm not going to Buffalo. You don't get to win at the end of this thing. You don't get to trade me to Buffalo. I'm not going to the Bills. Who wants to trade for a guy that doesn't want to be there? Nobody. So, anyway, I digress. Antonio Brown, now an Oakland Raider. They get him for a 3rd and a 5th in 2019's NFL Draft. Meanwhile, the Steelers get to eat a $21.2 million cap hit, and they get a 3rd and a 5th in return. Ouch. But they rid themselves of a locker room cancer that couldn't be back. But they went about this all the wrong way. Last comment from MRB says, I don't see this going well. The O-line for the Raiders isn't all that great. If you think that Brown was unhappy as a Steeler, it's going to be worse as a Raider. We'll see. We will see. But I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you check out the newest episode of the Louie T Network podcast, episode 41. It was a great episode. A lot was covered in that episode. Make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network podcast on whatever platform you are getting at. Make sure you turn on your notifications, and I'm going to start pumping out these videos eventually. All right? I've been moving, so I've been kind of caught up right now. But eventually I'm going to get to a place where I'm settled down and I'm able to start pumping out this content. So turn on those notifications so you get it. I just got up as well, and it was a long night for me as well. So I get it. Totally get it. Your long night and my long night might have been two different nights. Yours might have involved some alcoholic beverages. Mine, not so much. But same thing applies. In any event, hey, you guys have a good one. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll chop it up sometime during the course of the week. Adios. Have a good one.